Cobb. Garry Cobb and I saw this happening. Okay, we saw this happening where they lost kind of that fighter's edge and fist fight stuff. Okay, we saw that. And it played out against the Saints. We'll get to that here in a minute. But last night, man, I must have got 1,000 texts, and I texted Gary this morning. And the injury to Hamlin last night was frightening for everybody. And let's bring in Fox 29's Garry Cobb now. And Gary, what you saw last night, give me your reflection on how you felt and what you were watching last night and how everything worked out and how the league handled it.
Well, I mean, I don't know all that was happening, but I know what I was hearing on TV, where you had this, which came out of nowhere. I mean, it's unexpected, and all of a sudden you see where you got a player in a dire situation, and you can tell by the way the other players are reacting. Something is happening that is traumatic, and you don't normally see players, a lot of guys know each other, guys have played against each other, guys that are on different teams. But during the game, you think they were lifelong enemies because, it's all about winning, especially a game that means so much as the game last night where, you're playing for a playoff position and teams are trying to put themselves in a position to win the Super Bowl, meaning you're getting closer to it. This is not just a game that's playing. So you could see the seriousness of the game and everything. But to see the players just kind of just totally distraught. I mean, that something serious is happening, and it's amazing because you get hard to any type of injuries as a player. Now, I remember, when I was in high school, of course, you're playing, you got practice or whatever. If somebody gets hurt, hey, practice is over. A serious injury where they got an ambulance or something. Hey, somebody gets hurt, whatever, practice is pretty much over. But that's not the way it is in college. When you get to college, right away, when I got out there, you had injury, and they go, hey, let's move it over to this field, or let's move it down here to this position.
Move the drill.
Hey, we're doing the practice. Hey, come take care of him, the trainers, and then we got business because this is, serious business. So we're not shutting down practice. We got to practice. In fact, you got to be able to focus. If your best friend just, got his leg tore up, you got to be ready to go. You got to focus on doing your job and playing. And so you develop this core to where, you don't ever get caught up in somebody getting hurt and everything because it happens. It's just part of the game.
How did you feel, Gary?
How did I feel? Well, I was just concerned that, if his life was in danger, I'm shook. I'm wanting this kid to make sure that he's okay. Everything else is irrelevant, man. This is a life-threatening thing. So it just gets my attention to where I wasn't aware of that right away. But then once I realized it's a life-threatening thing, man, let the football is off to the side, man. Let's take care of this kid because he's out here playing. His life is in danger. That's all that matters. I want to see him taken care of. And do whatever we got to do, whatever we got to do right now to make sure that he survives this. That's what got me. So once it got to that point, later for the football.
Absolutely. Let's move on to the Eagles here, and I want to throw this at you here. I saw the same game plan that I saw in Chicago being implemented with the Saints game here, and I come away with this. There is no question that the fact that Jalen Hurts has exposed the offensive coaches, I mean, there's no way you go into a game that a team is giving up 132 yards rushing, Gary, and that's the Saints, and you start throwing the ball around the yard the way that they did, you put Gardner Minshew in a position to lose, and then on top of that, the Saints open up the game with a 15-play drive right down the field. And Gary, they were running the wing T.
Yeah.
I mean, give me your thoughts on how you saw.
Well,
I was very disappointed in the play and play calling.
I got to give New Orleans credit because they looked at the Washington game. This is the same thing that Washington did, which is they came and they said, we're going to play a game where we're just trying to stay on the field. We just want to get a first down. We're going to run it. We're going to have running plays and short passing game, because if they get in these zones, the Eagles, they play the zone where they basically just give you yardage. You know, you take that short yardage. You're willing to take 5 yards, they'll give you 5 yards. At some point, you got to take that away from them. You cannot just give that when you see that's the team. That's what they're trying to do. They just want to get to 5 yards. They're willing to take 4 yards completion. That's all they want. Well, if you give that to them, now you're playing into their hands. They just want to keep the offense off the field. They want to wear you down with the running game and a short passing game. That's what they did. It's the same game plan that Washington had, that executed. Keep the Eagles offense off the field. And with regards to the Eagles offense, you come in, you throw the ball every play. I mean, come on. And
2 rushes in the first half.
Yeah. And part of it was Minshew, because he's got a bad habit of bringing his eyes down, looking at the pass rush.
Yep.
He looks for that first receiver. They're not open. He brings his eyes down, which is what, young quarterbacks do that. In fact, Jalen was doing that in his first year. You got to keep that eyes downfield. You got to give the guys a chance to run their route where you're looking downfield. He brought his eyes down. They do kind of a mush rush, which everybody just slowly they come after him. I mean, nobody gets out of their lane. So they don't give him any room to try to little scramble, because he likes to scramble for a little room. But he's got to keep his eyes downfield. Now, he did a better job in the second half of doing that, to give the guys a chance to run routes. And then they were playing man-to-man, which is, look, we're taking the short stuff away from him because we think we can do this mush rush to where we take the short throw against him. He won't go downfield. He's gonna bring his eyes down. And in fact, the former coach of New Orleans, he said they had seen him doing that, and when he was playing at Jacksonville, that's what they utilized against him, which is just take away that first receiver, and he's gonna bring his eyes down.
He feels the pressure.
That's right, and he feels the pressure, and he wants to scramble out of it, and so it's something that was working. You got to give New Orleans credit. They did a good job with their game plan and everything. And the Eagles played into it, which is not taking anything away. You got to play some man-to-man. Come on. Third down, or really those second downs where they're going to be throwing. And all they want is just a little short gain to keep the ball away from you, short, and that's, I mean, you're going to see somebody else employ that, because it's worked 2 times against them, where a team has been able to just hang on the ball, 9-minute drive, 15 plays to start off the game. That just takes the air out of everything. I mean, it drains your defense. The offense is over there on the sideline. So when they do come in, they're impatient. So right away, we got to throw the ball every play. No, we don't have to throw the ball every play. We know that against New Orleans, their streak is their pass defense. They're not good against the run. You got to get physical with them. And that's where, I don't like to get too tricky, where you're lying on tricks rather than we pound the ball on people. We use our people to get up on people, double team, come off the double team, smash these guys in the mouth, where we can do this anytime. This is what we do. We can't get away from being that team.
And they activated Marcus Lattimore for the game. You should have went. I mean, their strength is pass defense.
That's right.
Gary, and speaking of that, let me throw these stats at you the last 2 weeks. So last week, Dak Prescott had a 77 completion percentage. Andy Dalton had an 81% completion percentage.
Yep.
In the last 2 weeks, Jonathan Gannon, soft zones, are turning these quarterbacks into freaking stars. Now, as we get into the playoffs, it looks like Brady and Rodgers are both going to get into the playoffs. Hoss, if You imagine what Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers would do at 77 to 81% completion percentage?
Come on, they will nickel and dime you. Come on. You know, these veteran quarterbacks, they will take that, man, and they will eat you up. You got to take some of that away. You got to be able to go up and play some man-to-man. Don't be so conventional and be, you know, where people can anticipate what you're doing. You can't be
You think they're too predictable?
He's definitely predictable. Come on. They knew what he was going to do. They know, look, we can get 4 or 5 yards, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to take that. Now, they're not even looking downfield to throw the ball. They just want to establish those short throws, especially to start the game. And that's what they did on that drive. And you're just playing into it with them by just playing that soft zone. You know, I mean, come on. These guys are paid to be able to play man-to-man too. You can't just be so predictable. You cannot do that against a good team. You got to mix it up. And 15 play, 9 minutes. Come on.
9:34 actually, too, they took off on that first drive.
Man.
Garry, are you concerned now going into this final week against the Giants? Now, here's the setup. The Giants don't have to play their starters. However, it's a divisional game. I don't think anybody in the Giant organization thinks that team's a Super Bowl team, but I'll tell you what they have to think. What a way, even if they don't win the Super Bowl, that could be Super Bowl A, and an opportunity for knock the Eagles out of home field advantage and into a wild card.
Mm-hmm.
What a great way to end the season if they get into the playoffs and get bounced. I mean, you would have really almost accomplished everything you're looking at. And Jones hasn't played bad. 3,400 yards, 800 rushing yards. He's played better. They're not great, but
yeah.
How do you see this weekend for the Eagles? This is a big weekend.
Well, I'm thinking from the Giants' standpoint. You know, I think that they want to probably have these guys play at least a half or you know, at least a quarter or something to get some work in, because they know they got a team that they cannot afford not to be sharp. They got no chance against anybody if they're not playing their best football. So I think that they want to do that. And with Daniel Jones, you know, the big thing I got to give him credit is he doesn't throw a lot. He doesn't turn the ball over. You know, I mean, he does not look good at times, but he doesn't turn the ball over very much. And see, you know, people make such a big deal about the Eagles' sacks and everything. Well, look, you know what? Sacks are not as big deal if you're not forcing any turnovers anytime. See, if you force a turnover now, that's a big sack. But if you're not turning the ball over, you know, it's not as big as they make it out to be, because you see stat-wise, you know, a team could still lose even though you got some sacks, because you see the Eagles, come on, last 2 weeks they've had plenty of sacks, but you got to get turnovers. That's why you got to be going after the ball. And I would emphasize that even more, because that is going to be a key. And the Giants do not turn the ball over. So you can wind up with a tight game. You know, I don't think it's going to be the case. The key is going to be really the Eagles and what they do, because they've got so many weapons. If the quarterback drops back, a lot of times these guys are going to be man-to-man. You can't double all of the Eagles receivers. They got enough quality receivers where the guy that's man-to-man, you can be confident he's probably going to get open, especially when you talk about, you know, AJ, Devonta, and, of course, Dallas. Those three, you can't double all of those guys. So if you're going to play zone, there's going to be somebody open. And if you play man-to-man, there's going to be somebody to get the ball to that's in one-on-one. A number of the guys going to be one-on-one. And the thing you got to have the confidence in is that these guys make plays if you give them a chance, even if it looks like they're covered. If they're in man-to-man all year, these guys have been making plays. And we saw this with AJ. Look at the play he made. Devonta made plays. Once he started getting the ball out of his, Minshew started getting the ball out of his hands and having the confidence, these guys are going to make plays when they're matched up man-to-man. Now, if the guy's doubled, like what happened with that interception for the touchdown, where you got deep help and you got a good corner over there, come on, he's going to jump. He's going to try to jump the route because he knows he's got help deep. So, you got to know what you're doing with that. That was Minshew's fault, and you can't be making those bad errors like that. You got to make good reads, and that's really dependent. That's what the quarterback's got to do. He's got to read the coverage and he's got to give the receiver a chance to make a play.
Last two questions for you here. Do you believe that they've got to get back to establishing Dallas Goedert and Miles Sanders, because
Yes,
those two guys are an identity?
Yep.
I mean, when Goddard catches the ball and he softens that zone up in that seam,
yep.
I mean, they're a different football team. When those guys are established, it's one thing to get those. I don't think you can establish an offense, Gary, with perimeter guys.
True.
I think you establish with tight end and the run game. And I think they've kind of gotten away from that a little bit.
Yeah, and that goes together. We know how much that goes together, because once you establish you can run the ball, the tight end is going to be open. Because as a linebacker, I'll tell you, there's no way you can play the run and cover the tight end. You can't be doing both, because if you're covering the tight end, you're worried about that so much. You can't play run defense the way you want to. A linebacker cannot be attacking the line of scrimmage if you're worried about the tight end. You're really either choosing one or the other. And that's why, what you're saying about establishing those two, I think is very, very true. And if they're not in the game plan, see, then you're just pass happy, and you're not relying on your toughness, the things that you always can go to. That's why early on, man, I do not like when you get too far away from that, because there's going to come a point where you got to go back to that. You got to be able to say, we can run the ball on these guys. We are taking this yardage. We don't care what they get in. We're taking this yardage. And you got to let your offensive lineman look. We are dependent on you guys, because we might have to go back to you. So we don't ever want to get too far away from that. And I just, that's why earlier in the year, I do not like getting away from that. The Eagles have that. Don't ever let these guys get away from that, because if you can run the ball and play muscle and physical ball with people, then they can't take that away. They cannot take that away.
Final question for you. It looks like that Jalen Hurts, from what I'm understanding, is going to get another MRI today. Okay, Lane Johnson, Josh Sweat now, Avonte Maddox, CJ, we still don't know anything on.
Yeah.
Their guys are banged up right now going in. Are you concerned now that the Eagles, one, are not playing their best ball going into the stretch run here, and all the things that they prevented at the early part of the season with injuries are now catching up with them, because this is not the same team we saw in September.
That's right.
Guys are missing now. Are you concerned heading into the playoffs here?
Well, I'm concerned right now. I want to see what I'm talking about. I want to see them get to a physical football. I want them to go to that. I want them to establish that, to where everybody knows, look, you're going to play the Eagles. You better buckle up your helmet, because we are going to come out and we're going to try to punish you. Once you do that, now all the other stuff will flourish. But you got to make sure you don't get away from that. And the defense has got to have that mentality now. Defensively, you got to give New Orleans credit. Look, they come out and play man-to-man. Now, we're not good enough to play man-to-man, but they can play man-to-man. I refuse to say we got to sit in a soft zone all the time. Come on, we cannot
Gary,
do
that's such a great point. Everyone tells me every day we have the two best corners in the NFL. Then why are we playing zone?
That's right. It doesn't make any sense. Come on. Again, what I'm talking about is, you got to challenge your players. We got to be able to play man-to-man, fellas. Just like I go to my line, I'm telling my offensive line, look, I don't care who lines up over there. We're running the ball on these guys. Same way defensively. You lock down your guy. Everybody's going to be a man-to-man. You just do your job, lock down your guy, because you don't have to cover them forever, because if you're a man-to-man and you get pressure on the quarterback's got to do something. They got to get rid of the ball. And then there are going to be some incompletions. But if you're just going to let them have a soft zone and they just take the short throws, they're going to have a high completion percentage. And I don't think they teach how to play the zone. I don't think they do a good job of teaching it, because you got to play.
They're too wide open.
You got to play man.
The whole area's open.
That's right. It's got to be like man in the zone. When the guy's in your area, you got to be over him. You don't want to just be standing there and let him catch the ball.
Is that TJ's fault, Gary, and the linebackers not dropping to proper depth, or is that something in the scheme?
I think it's the scheme. It's the way they teach it. Now, see, I've been taught to where, I know you can do where you just drop to an area, but no, you can't play that in the NFL. The quarterback's too good. You got to lock down the guy that's in your zone. You got to be on him so he can't catch the ball. Meaning, like, if he's in your zone, you got to be all over him. So it's man in the zone. It's not just a plain zone defense, because that is too easy for the quality of quarterbacks in the NFL. They will eat you up, and that's what they have done. You got to be tighter on your man. You can't just be loose. I'm in the area, so if he's in my area, then I'm going to be kind of near him. No, when he's in your area, you are man to man on him. You got to be in a position to knock the ball down and not let him just catch the ball. They got to play that better than that. And being that they seem like they just can't play zone well enough, then you got to play man to man. You don't just concede yardage and concede first downs. You can't play that kind of a game. And especially, like you said, if they're dealing with Brady and the Packers and stuff, I mean, come on.
Garry, great stuff as always, man. Hope you had a great holiday. Thank you, my friend. It should be a very interesting weekend.
They better get ready to fight, boy.
I'm telling you, they better put their boxing gloves on this week because they're going to need to. Garry, thank you, my friend.
All right, have a great one.
You got it, Garry Cobb. That is such a great point that Garry just made. You don't have the best corners in the league. The best corners in the league play man coverage. They don't play zone coverage. That is so correct. That is the most overrated part of the conversation about the Eagles. Why does Jonathan Gannon concede man coverage? He concedes it. He concedes it. That is one of the best comments made all year long about the Gannon defense. These high percentage completion percentages. Dude, it doesn't mean shit against shitty quarterbacks and bad teams. In the postseason, I'm telling you, man, this Philadelphia team is built for one and done. It's built for one and done.